Yeah, I was just looking at this Tim Poole show with comments about Kanye West being targeted for anti-Semitic remarks, so-called, and being dropped from his Chase Bank. So these people are discussing it, and I just have some insight into it that they lack, given my age and given that I grew up during the Black Jewish collaboration in the 60s, late 60s or early 70s, around the Black Panther Party being funded by the upper class New York liberal Jewish Bob Silvers and Epstein's, Jason Epstein and Leonard Bernstein, and the Marxist revolutionaries, Jewish revolutionaries, going back to Marx and through the Frankfurt School and showing up in different guises. Clement Greenberg was a Trotskyite, and Potteretz, and it's all this collaboration between Jews, blacks, Hispanics, Cesar Chavez, the Union Movement, the mafias, Italian, Irish, Jewish bankers. It's all about control of power, access to power, getting your mafia identity located within this power grid. And BLM, from its inception, was using the trans cisgen LGBTQT, that community, for their own interests. You know, these are satanic, and the deceptions of Satan are just, I mean, they're startlingly brilliant when it comes to Freemasons and occultists like the Aleister Crowley occultists. The amount of power and the amount of sheer genius in manipulating their followers, you know, who are driven by this kind of utopianism that's just a crock. You know, the people, the John Lennons and the Bob Dylans, have no more interest in social justice and peace than, you know, Jimmy Hoffa or Bugsy Siegel. And if you listen to Bob Dylan's songs, he loves Joey Gallo, the mafia hitman gangster, or Warren Beatty just loves Bonnie and Clyde, or Howard Hughes, or you know, and Howard Hughes is a CIA. All of this stuff is just completely corrupt, and I bought it when I was younger, and I see right through it. So here's what they're not seeing.
He's just a wild.
He's
He's
choosing
an
that
empath.
frequency.
Yeah.
No, his
He's
Tucker
got
Carlson
dreams.
his Tucker Carlson interview was very coherent. It was very good. Yeah, we listened to that.
I thought he was eloquent there.
Yeah, and then Vice came out and was like, "Listen to what Kanye really said," but Tucker edited it out, and I was like, "It's just not." That's like one controversial thing. He's a Black Hebrew Israelite, I guess. Kanye
Yeah.
West believes that he's a true Jew, and I'm like, I don't know. I maybe Tucker Carlson took it out because it didn't flow the conversation, and it's like they cut it for time.
Yeah. Oh, because Judaism is passed through blood. That's the idea. And so he says his great ancestors were Jewish.
No. Black Hebrew Israelites believe that Black people are the true, children of Israel or whatever, and that the people there currently are like occupying it and stole it from them or something.
Interesting philosophy. When BLM first started getting really big a year or two ago, that was quite a difficult time for a lot of Jewish people because a lot of anti-Semitism came from there, and then there was a lot of sort of Jewish Black rivalry stuff going on for about a year or so.
So I lived in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, and there was a huge Jewish, like there were shootouts between Hasidic Jewish people and the Black community. Like it was weird.
Yeah.
And they just had like a mobile command at like this dividing line between the two neighborhoods. And I didn't really understand it. But then several years later, when I was covering a riot in Baltimore, and these kids were talking about they were Muslim, and they started talking about a lot of this stuff, and they're just like coming up to the cameras and then yelling stuff. And then people started explaining to me like Farrakhan and all this stuff I wasn't super familiar with, and I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah. Right. So you've got these people who believe really, really anti-Semitic things. We saw the reporting from I think it was the New York Times and Tablet about the heads of BLM were extremely anti-Semitic, spreading these conspiracy theories about Jewish people and all that stuff. So
well, and see, this is just a repeat of what happened in the '60s, because that alliance, what they both agree on, what the black revolutionaries, the black nationalists and the Jewish nationalists definitely agree on, is that the Christians have to go. They're the patriarchs. That's the white male patriarchy. Jews aren't the white male patriarchy. Blacks don't have a white. I mean, they only have multiple, harems. The Bob Marleys or the Mormons or the Hasidic Jews are the most oppressive. Women have like zero rights in the Jewish and the Hasidic community. But we'll shift all of it onto George Washington as a slave owner, and so they can unite over that temporarily for the Democratic Party to take power. And then the minute they're in power, these rivalries come right to the surface. Back then, you had Mad Magazine and everything else targeting Farrakhan and all this hatred of Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X and the black nationalists. They're natural enemies, and so it's just a repeat of that same cycle is what you see now, is because the Democrats are in power, and they've put the oligarchy. I mean, and who benefits from this? Of course, the Jeff Bezoses, the Oaks Sulzberger, the Jewish banking class. But if you say that, it's not just the Jewish banking class, it's also the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. It's the Rockefellers and the Morgans, and they have a perfect symbiosis. And sure, Barack Obama is welcome to join because he's part of the occult New World Order group. It doesn't matter what your skin color is, or sex or gender or anything else. That's just useful to, in a narcissistic society, particularly where everybody is the most important thing in the world is your sexual identity or your black or your skin color and all these things. You're going to just play that. You got a vagina, so just talk about it endlessly, or you got a dick and you just talk about masturbating or farting, or keep it as low as possible on a childish level, so you can run politics according to the student council elections in the 10th grade or 11th grade. And what these guys aren't addressing, and what nobody's really addressing, is what I keep addressing, is that this is a biblical prophecy being realized. Kanye's crazy. The Jews are crazy. The Hasidics are crazy. The Kabbalah guru is crazy. The Sadhguru is crazy. The Jim Jones, but Jesus is real. He wasn't crazy. He rose again from the dead. And the traditional Jesus is real, and the traditional God of Israel with the Ten Commandments is real, and the Old Testament is not obsolete, according to Andy Stanley and the Mega $1 Million church movement with playing Led Zeppelin songs. That's Satanism. And Hillsong and Bethel. Bethel is a virtual recreation of Jim Jones's whatever it was, the Golden Temple. Again, they're all with the Temple of Doom, whatever you want to call them. They're voting blocks. There's a good book called Journey to Nowhere by Shiva Nepal, who's V.S. Nepal's brother, I believe. And he locates all of, the Harvey Milks and the gay community and the Democratic community, all these communities, the beatniks and the hippies, and they're all interlocked around the issue of we're all going to have our own occult religion, and we're all going to have sex orgies and pass around STDs, and but it's Christianity if it's Jim Jones, and it's Hare Krishna if it's John Lennon or George Harrison, and it's the Church of Satan if it's what's his name, Jimmy Page and Charlie Manson and Bobby Beausoleil and Kenneth Anger and Marianne Faithfull and Anita Pallenberg and Nico and but devout Catholic if it's Andy Warhol and Gerard Malangan. It's the same thing. You just call it paganism, just call it Gnosticism. These guys are Gnostics. Look at what he's got on his wall. That Johnny Depp himself, right? The Telecaster guitar, whatever's behind him. Just call it's paganism. It's paganism, and you have to have. You can only serve one master. You can't serve Mammon. You can't serve God and Mammon at the same time. So there has to be a choice. There's the narrow way, or there's the broad path. The broad path, like is, man, it's looking great. I mean, you never had so much 24-hour, any kind of sex, any kind of drugs, any kind of rap, root, rock, reggae, country, western, smoking ganja with Willie and Snoop Dogg, and they're all part of the same organization as Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, the Killer, and the Killer Mafia from Memphis, and Martin Luther King having his head blown off in Memphis and wiping up the blood of the saint with Jesse Jackson right away. I mean, this is like the Church of Jeffrey Epstein. So it's all one big happy family of Baphomet. It's one big happy family of the gospel according to this man, Karl Marx. And where do we see this? What do we see this hand inside the jacket? That's a Freemasonic symbol. So Marx is a Freemason, but he's also a Satanist. I've got any number of books. You can see this. Was Karl Marx a Satanist? The answer is yes. It's all documented in any number of books that I've read from and continue to read from and continue to do research. And I've been doing research on this for years. Why nobody else, or why so few people are so aware, to the point you can say, oh, this is a conspiracy theory. No, there's actually a Freemasonic society. It actually goes back to the founding fathers. They're a combination of Freemasons or deists, or Jefferson had his own Bible. He got rid of their Enlightenment people. That's man is the center of the universe. It goes back to the Renaissance. It goes back to the Borgia popes. It goes back to the early days of the Roman Catholic Church and Constantine. This guy, just look at him. Anybody know who this is? That's Lenin's arrest. He's up there in Switzerland, where the home of Dada, with Hugo Ball and Tristan Tzara and the Marcel Duchamp crowd, the Man Rays, the James Joyces. That's what modernism is. Modernism is the derangement of the senses. It's throwing off reason. It's anarchy. It's extensive drug use. It's millions of people dead, which is what we're happening. It's happening right now. These one war after the next war after the next war after the next war, and we're going to have peace through nuclear warfare, or through having these long discussions that have been going on since this guy entered the scene. You just have to look for the symbolism that's at CERN in Switzerland. You look at the symbolism that's at the Capitol Rotunda building and the L'Enfant Plaza and the International Temple of the Masons in Washington, D.C., and the various monuments, and the Vatican in Rome, and the city in London, and you name it. It's just what it is. So that's good enough for me for tonight. I'm going to I'm going to hit the spa, I think, tomorrow, and go to a yoga retreat in the mountains. So get my robes out of the closet, be off and do some chanting for world peace.